What's up, everybody? It's Q Robinson here, and you're watching Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR.
Greetings from Daytona, where a band of dreamers took a strip of beach and turned it into a proving ground. The great American race, where year after year, greatness is the destination. So book your experience and soak in 500 miles of history and tradition. Once you arrive, you'll never look back. Secure your seats now at Daytona500.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be with you today in our Tuscaloosa studio during a very busy time for Alabama athletics as basketball season has arrived, and of course, football has a huge matchup coming up on Saturday down in Baton Rouge against the LSU Tigers. We'll start our show by taking a look at what's coming up and our headlines thanks to our friends RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They've given us this smart board to go through everything in a very interactive style. First things first, we'll visit with Alabama defensive lineman James Smith, talking about how he's earned more playing time on the interior defensive line rotation for the Crimson Tide this year. Then we'll visit with Holly Rowe. She'll be on the call for ABC coming up on Saturday, along with Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit, but we'll get her thoughts on Alabama heading into this matchup with LSU. Speaking of the Tigers, we get to visit with Chris Blair, the longtime play-by-play voice of the LSU Tigers, for the other booth presented by Marathon, get his scouting report on LSU. Then we'll wrap up the show by hearing from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Kalen DeBoer, who last night joined us at Baumhower's in Tuscaloosa for Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show. Headlines for the Crimson Tide football team. Again, an open date this past week, and now it's time to head on down to Baton Rouge. 6:30 kickoff. Our radio coverage will start at 3:30 in what is one of the great settings in college football, a night game at Tiger Stadium. But you think back to the Nick Saban era, Alabama had a lot of success on the road in this matchup, winning 5 of the last 6. Yes, last time was an overtime loss in 2022, but other than that, Alabama has really had the upper hand in this rivalry matchup with LSU. On Tuesday night, we got the results of the college football playoffs first poll of the year. Alabama comes in at number 11 and LSU at number 15. And as the bracket was released by ESPN, Alabama would be included in the college football playoff field. Now, a lot of that, of course, depends on if Alabama can pick up the win on Saturday against LSU and basically win out the rest of this regular season. Ryan Williams, Hollywood, keeps getting accolades. He has been named to the Sean Alexander Freshman of the Year Award semifinalist list. A great honor for Ryan Williams, an award we're very partial to, named in honor of Alabama great Sean Alexander. Basketball in full swing. On Tuesday's show, we talked about the opening night wins for women's and men's basketball, a really impressive doubleheader showing at Coleman Coliseum. Now, at least for the women's team, they're hitting the road tonight, going to Huntsville to take on Alabama A&M. 7:30 is the start time. Our radio start time will be 7:15. And it's a Hendricks game. Richard Hendricks will be joining me for the broadcast coming up at Alabama A&M this evening. We look forward to that. And then on Sunday, it'll be Alabama home against Troy at 2 o'clock for the next Crimson Tide home game. For the men's basketball team, they're at home the next 2 nights or games that they have coming up. It's first of all tomorrow against Arkansas State at 7 p.m. Our radio airtime will be 6. And then on Monday night as well, taking on McNeese State. So some very notable head coaches coming in with these matchups. Brian Hodson, a longtime assistant at Alabama, and even going back to Buffalo for Nate Oates. He's the second-year head coach at Arkansas State. Second-year head coach of McNeese State, Will Wade, former LSU coach who led his Cowboys to the NCAA tournament last year. So 2 outstanding matchups coming up, and then it's going to be a long time before the Crimson Tide will be back at home. It'll be until mid-December until you can see the men's team at home, so make sure you're there coming up tomorrow and Monday. The other notes around Crimson Tide athletics, the Crimson Tide soccer team saw its season likely come to a close against South Carolina, 4-1 the final score in the quarterfinals of the SEC tournament on Tuesday. Alabama not likely to be included in the NCAA tournament field, but still a tremendous campaign. Just unfortunately too many ties for this Alabama team throughout the course of the year. Also, Alabama athletics is getting ready for the Bama Salute Military Appreciation Week. There will be events honoring the military coming up at men's and women's basketball, the football game as well coming up against Mercer. More on that on RollTide.com. And then, of course, when the Crimson Tide are at home against Mercer, after we get there, Take that, John King. We will see coming up for the Mercer game. It will be another concert at Champions Lane, Vector Security Champions Lane, getting you ready for Alabama against Mercer. Coming up on November 16th, Smith Distillery will be performing. We look forward to seeing them again. We saw them a few weeks ago with Easton Corbin. And then Jake Matthew will be our final concert of the year, getting you ready for the Iron Bowl on November 30th. Somebody that can't wait to play in the Iron Bowl is James Smith. He has really come on strong for the Crimson Tide this season as part of one of the more interesting, more entertaining groups on this football team, the defensive line group. We've gotten to visit with a lot of his teammates so far this year, like Tim Smith, Tim Keenan. Now we have the opportunity to visit with James Smith from the Crimson Tide football team as he previews Alabama and LSU. Roll Tide and welcome back to Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Now, please be joined by Alabama defensive lineman James Smith as we talk about this season and everything going on for James Smith here at Alabama. And first of all, man, Roll Tide. How much have you enjoyed this season?
I enjoyed it a lot. I feel like it's my first time, like, really getting to play a lot. Like, so it's like just taking it all in. It's really having fun.
Of course, some good opportunities for you last year, but this year specifically, what do you think led to you getting on the field more?
Some people will say maturing, but it's just me understanding what I had to do and, like, some stuff I had to get better at and understanding, like, it wasn't my time last year. And this year just honing in on the little things and just doing everything right.
Who are some guys that really helped you, some veterans that helped you kind of learn the right things to do to make sure you could play?
I'd say Tim Keenan, Tim Smith, Jamarian Latham, just really all my older guys, like, just helped me, like, just, and not even that, just seeing them and knowing, like, they needed me this season, like just time to come on, just came to work, for real.
That's really good, and I imagine a lot of that credit has to go to Coach Roach as well, right?
Yeah.
What do you like about playing for him?
He's just himself, really, and he's not, I feel like he doesn't lie to you. He's up front with you, and he lets you really express yourself and really be who you are.
That's really good. How does he keep the room kind of loose and things like that? You know, serious when it needs to be, but also make sure you want to keep having fun every time you come to work.
Yeah, he just let us know, like, when it's time to lock in, time to be about your business, time to be about your business. When it's time to play, it's time to play. You know what I'm saying? But we kind of mix it up, like, together, because, like, while we working hard and all that, we know, but, like, at certain times at practice, like, sometimes in the game, we'll look at each other, laugh, you know, play around a little bit, but just knowing, like, the lock back in.
How have you seen this team really stay together, even when some adversity has hit this year?
Just seeing the team staying together whenever, like, when defense is having a bad game, offense is up. So it's like we just really feeding off each other. Like, sometimes it might not be our defensive game. Sometimes it might be our offensive game. It's just like just knowing how to stay together and really pick each other up at times, certain times in the game when it got tough.
There's a lot of conversation about crowd noise. Obviously, Alabama just had a tough road game at Tennessee. But even at home, when the defense is on the field, we want Alabama fans to be as loud as can be. How do you guys kind of non-verbally communicate with each other when it is so loud at home?
I feel like we got signals, and, like, as, like, you know, defensive linemen, we really just got to get one call, get the set and all that. Then as the linemen, we look at each other, make sure everybody on the same page. We look at each other like this, and linebacker really talk to us, like D-Law and all of them really talk to us, and we just look around, everybody just be on the same page.
How good of a leader is Deontay Lawson?
He's just one of a kind. You see it on the field, man. He just make sure everybody lined up. He going beyond his job. Like, he would get the corner, the safety, so he can everybody just make sure everybody on the same page getting the call.
You talked before about just making sure you're where you need to be and you're ready to go for that first movement. How important is being explosive once that ball is snapped?
It's really, I feel like for me, it really is, like, the thing I feel like is what set me apart, being I'm strong, but I'm not really as strong as, like, Tim Keenan, Tim Smith, and all them guys. So it's like, I feel like my first step won't have to be quick because I can beat them to the spot type of thing. Yeah.
Any plays you're really proud of so far this year?
Any plays? No, not really. It's just, I'm just happy to be there. Like, happy to just be there for my brothers, like, to really have fun with them, be on the field, and really just, like, get to take this in, like, and just really enjoy, like, what I've been able to be the part of this season.
Been part of a lot of great plays. Let's back it up just a little bit. Back to your high school days. How much did you enjoy playing high school football at Carver and Montgomery? And was football always your first love?
I say football wasn't my first love. It was really basketball. But, like, over time, like, I was like 10. My mom was like, "Oh, this man wants you to play football." So I'm like, I'll go out there. Went out there, I was actually good, so I kept playing. And I got to Carver. So, as you know, you probably don't know, but I came here with Jaquavius Rousseau. Like, we came from the same Carver High School and stuff like that. So it's like, and I feel like just coming in, first started playing, it was just like kind of funny at first. Then I ain't know I was really good until my 8th grade year, like playing. I played running back, so I would keep on scoring. I played D-line. I was just doing good. Everybody was like, "Ted, you gonna be good." I'm like, yeah, I was just like, yeah, okay. Then I just offers started coming in. I was like, yeah, I might actually do this.
Was that pretty exciting, that whole recruiting process?
Yeah, because it came out of nowhere for me. Like, I was just like, because people always telling me, like, I'm like, you know how people just be talking, bro. But I'm one of the people, like, you got to show me, like, you got to show me. Somebody, and then it actually happened.
Did you have Alabama in mind from the start? They come on a little bit later in the process.
I wouldn't say in mind from the start, but, like, I always knew, like, in my head as a little kid coming up, like, I used to tell my dad, like, I'm going to play for Nick Saban. Like, I kept on telling him that, like, just kept on telling him that. But it's like, you grow up in Alabama, that's all you know is Roll Tide. So it's like, that's why I was just like, yeah. Then for him to actually, like, to really come and offer me and all that, it was so real. So I was just like, yeah, and took it all in.
Did he come down to your high school and stuff? How special was that?
It was different for me. Like, it was on the phone. Like, he called me. It was like, Jay, because it was during COVID. He was like, yeah, you want to come down here, this, that. But, COVID and everything going on. Then he said, I'm going to give you the saving. Nobody told me, like, I was getting old. So, like, he called me. He said, James, I would like to be the first to tell you that you have an opportunity to come to the University of Alabama. And, like, it was just, like, I got chills up my body. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, this might be me right here.
And then you got to come here, play on his very last team.
Yes.
I mean, how special was it to be part of that ride from a group that was really doubted early in the season with adversity, but then you wind up winning an SEC title?
Yeah. I feel like it was just being a part of his last team and actually, like, doing what I told my father I would, like, play for him, you feel me? Like, actually, you know what I'm saying? Just go through with it.
How special is that championship ring to you?
Very. It's sitting in my home right now. Like, it's like sitting up on the mountain. Like, it's because I feel like it's really his our really last team he had, and I feel like I just take so much pride in that.
Yeah, I guess play a good role in it, and then Coach DeBoer comes in with his new staff. How'd you see them really start to win over the locker room, even from some of the earliest days?
I feel like for me, the winner, like being sitting in the winner of the locker room, because I was really open, like, type of thing. I was like, you never know how this could go. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just here. For, like, I'm with y'all, like, whatever y'all with, I'm with, type of thing. And, I had the older guys with me, so my room ain't really go nowhere. So it's like, me and my brothers, like, we together. Like, we in here. Like, we locked in because Roach ain't going nowhere, so we just going to sit. We good, type of thing. And I feel like the boy went in the locker room over, he just his vibe. Everybody started to really like, oh, this him. Like, he really cool. Like, he really relaxed type of person. Like, he really a good coach type of thing.
He really is. You mentioned your buddy Russo as well. I mean, how about the start he's had here?
Yeah, it just, both of us, I feel like it's just so real. Like, because, like, we come from, like, Montgomery and all that, Alabama and stuff like that. We actually came here together. But for us to actually, like, put it together and really come together and, like, just work and just be on the field together, it's just real because we did it in high school.
One of the things I think fans are liking this season, seeing not only you wear number 23, but also LT Overton wear number 22.
Yeah.
We're kind of used to running backs wearing that number. Have you enjoyed getting down, not being in the 90s maybe, and wearing a cool number like that?
Yeah, I feel like that's a good thing about the boy, too. Like, he's, like, more open. It's just, like, nothing wrong with that old style, but, like, he's just more open, like, to new era type of thing, like, just, like, make it different, switch it up. And I feel like it's great, really, like, seeing me and LT just, just switch it up. Like, Zebo got 20. It's just different because Bama fans are really used to seeing D linemen with lower numbers. You see like in the 90s, the 40s, or 50s type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's really good. It makes you guys even look faster on the field. That makes sense.
Yeah. Take a few pounds off.
There you go. That's really good. How important is all the work you put in the weight room?
I feel like it's really important because, like, it's SEC. Like, we ain't really playing, like, no little. These are big people. Like, so it's like, actually be, like, physically, and then, like, it's a longer season now. So I feel like the weight room really it really separates you, like, to do it in and out, like, every day, like, to really work out. And it just I feel like it prevents injuries.
That's really good to see.
Yeah.
And then you guys are having the midst of this season. Just how do you make sure your body's ready to go week to week throughout the season?
I feel like Coach Ballou does a great job, like, with us, like, just working us out and letting us know, like, these workouts we do now, you may be tired, like, after the game, you might not want to work out and stuff like that, but, like, down the stretch of the season, it's going to help us. Like, other teams maybe not be doing this, or maybe a team might be beat up because they didn't work out, like, work some of their soreness out, or didn't run or work or just roll out, just extra things.
Crimson Tide, get back to action this week. Still some really important football coming up for this group. What's going to be most important from your perspective for Alabama to move forward?
For us to really move forward, just like how Coach DeBoer says, 1-0, like, really, like, just really put that game behind us and really just come to work, like, again and again, like, relentless effort, like just relentless. Like we know what happened last week. We just gonna keep coming to work every day, and just hope it pay off.
We look forward to seeing it pay off. James Smith, thank you for all the time you've given us. Roll Tide.
Yeah, Roll Tide.
Experience racing like never before. From the sandy beaches of Daytona to the high banks of one of the most exciting super speedways on the NASCAR circuit. Don't miss out as NASCAR kicks off the 2025 season with the Daytona 500 on February 16th, 2025. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. Fun conversation with James Smith. We wish him all the best, not only on Saturday, but the rest of the season for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Someone that's been on the sidelines already for some big Alabama matchups so far this year is Holly Rowe of ABC and, of course, ESPN. But this is the first year of the SEC on ABC, and she's once again on the broadcast coming up on Saturday in Baton Rouge for Alabama against LSU. So we figured this was the perfect time for her to be our national guest of the week to give us a breakdown on the Crimson Tide and the Tigers. Holly, are you as fired up as we are here in Tuscaloosa for this game?
I am so fired up. So we did this game, I guess it was 2 years ago when LSU got the upset win and fans rushed the field. And I'm expecting every bit as much electricity, excitement. I do think this is an LSU team that's, they're banged up. They're trying to find ways to win. So they're a little desperate. I think some of our colleagues are calling this an elimination game. The Alabama players I've talked to have said they cannot lose. They've already lost twice and they cannot afford another loss. So I think that kind of the sense of urgency is making this even more heightened.
We're certainly excited for what's coming up on Saturday. Just how much do you love matchups like this and the atmosphere we're going to be in down in Baton Rouge? You've done everything pretty much in your career, but where is this really a separator? Is this where college football shines the most?
I mean, Alabama, LSU, I think it's kind of a life-changing game. What the team's lives and fortunes change. So many national championship runs have been decided on this game. I was just listening to a podcast with Jacob Hester, the great fullback, running back from LSU that won a national championship. And he was describing this play where his quarterback threw a pick and he ends up chasing down a DB. I just want to paint that picture. A fullback, big 230, chasing down a DB to save a touchdown. And that saving that touchdown allows them to go on and win the national championship that year. So these games come down to these minute moments over time. I never will forget the game again where AJ McCarron is in tears after the game because he had felt the weight of the world on his shoulders to finally beat LSU after he had performed in previous meetings. So, I mean, this game just feels different. It just feels like the heavyweight battle. And it comes down to these little tiny things that really change the fortune for both teams.
What are some other Alabama storylines you're following as you get ready for Saturday?
Yeah, so one of the storylines that I'm really following is how this defense is growing and improving week to week. It's a different defense. It's a new system. It's a new style. And I'm sure fans feel some kind of way about that. But as I'm talking to some of the guys, one of the players that I don't feel like is getting a lot of national publicity that I'm obsessed with is Jahad Campbell. So he is, I think, one of the most interesting players in college football. He can play all four positions. He is, I talked to him yesterday, actually, to get some notes for the game. And he described himself as a Swiss Army knife. And he was so cute. He's like, you know what a Swiss Army knife is? And I said, yes. It means you have, we can pull out lots of different gadgets and you'll be able to perform in lots of different ways. And he really prides himself on knowing every position. They use him a lot in a lot of different ways. And, one of the things I was thinking about as we were having this conversation is you look at what LSU was trying to do with Harold Perkins the last couple of years, not exactly knowing where and how to play him to really maximize his skill set. And while I'm not really comparing those two players, what I am saying is that should point out to you how versatile and how smart and how intriguing it is the way they do employ Jahad, because he can play all over the field. So that's one storyline. He had a great comment. I thought this was a great quote from him. We're going into Baton Rouge with violent intentions. I feel like there's this urgency. This is a business trip. All of these players I've spoken to this week, I've talked to 5 players, and it is like, urgency, business trip, season depends on it. So I do think their sense of urgency is heightened. And then, we just keep trying to look for new storylines. It's hard to uncover things that haven't already been told. One of the things I did this week that was so cute, Jalen Milroe has, his Link kind of podcast series or interview series that he's doing. Let a naysayer know, wink, wink. And he did an interview with Ryan Williams, and they talked about the first time they met and the first time they were able to connect. And they told this really cute story about Jalen jumped in Ryan's TikTok and did something fun in a TikTok when he first got there. And then later at practice that week, he threw him a long deep ball. And Ryan's like, I called my mama and I was like, Mama, I think he likes me. I think we're good. Just that he could forge this connection and this relationship. And, they talked about how funny it is that like 4 + 2 = 6 is their new math that they're doing. Of course, Jalen's number 4, Ryan's number 2, and that equals a touchdown 9 times out of 10. So I'm just like, you watch all this different stuff, you try to glean all these different storylines and what can we actually present, what actually, comes to fruition in the game that then we can tell viewers about.
We certainly look forward to that. And for you, you've covered Alabama football through the years. The one coach you interview, Nick Saban. Now, he, of course, is one of your teammates with the ESPN family of networks. And you get to interview someone you've known before in Kalen DeBoer. Just how have you seen this coaching transition from Coach Saban to Coach DeBoer?
I think it's fascinating because that you really could not find two different people as far as personalities go, but they are two really good ball coaches, right? So I think it's interesting. I've been curious, and you'll have to tell me this. I'm hoping that, listen, I know how the Alabama fan base can be. This is a fan base that, let's be honest, I'm saying this in all positive way. They're spoiled. They have had the greatest coach of all time coaching them for the last 17 years. And, they are spoiled by what they've been able to have under Nick Saban. And they've got to be patient. There were so many changes with this roster. There's so many changes with the scheme, personnel. I really hope that the fan base is being patient because these are two very different coaches. But the turnover internally with the roster, I think people need to really understand that's a lot. I mean, that is really a lot. So Kalen DeBoer is like maybe one of my favorite people I've ever met in college football. We got to do 6 Washington games last year. So I got to know him so well, see him in action, see how he treated his players. And I'm just telling you, I love this guy. So Alabama faithful, I'm just telling you, if you give him the patience and the time and space he deserves, you're going to be happy with the results. So that's my, I'm going to get off my soapbox now, but that's my take on that.
That's certainly good. Of course, we've enjoyed this partnership between the SEC and ESPN and ABC, getting to air all these games. I know people have just loved being camped out on their couch for 3 great games in a row on ABC. Just for you, how much fun is it get back to having the SEC as part of your college football schedule?
Well, I really love it because I have been covering the SEC since I think 1997 was maybe my first game in the conference. So when I say I go way back, like OG SEC. And so we've gotten to see the growth, the changes, the coaching changes, the great players, the legacy moments. We've gotten to see all of that in some respects, except for that big game, that CBS had every week. And so selfishly, this is super selfish, but for me, I'm like, we finally get the best game. And, 9 times out of 10, it is the best game of the week in college football, the entire landscape, what's happening in the SEC. So I feel really lucky. I've been covering the league for such a long time. I'm bad at math, but 97 till now, that's like 25 years or something crazy. But I think that it's really been worth the wait, and I'm just thrilled.
Well, you guys are putting on a great show each and every week, and now we look forward to you putting on Alabama against LSU this Saturday. Just, Holly, thank you so much for all the time you've given us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. We look forward to seeing you down in Baton Rouge. Roll Tide.
Always happy to help. Love to see you guys and love covering Alabama football, so thank you for having me.
What's up? I'm Neil Hibbett, and you're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Greetings from Daytona, where year after year, greatness is the destination. So book your experience and soak in 500 miles of history and tradition. Secure your seats now at Daytona500.com.
Holly Rowe on the broadcast, of course, for ABC. We'll have the call on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, and then right next door, it'll be our good friend Chris Blair calling the game for LSU and their sports network. Chris gives us a breakdown on LSU this season, even looks ahead a little bit to basketball season for the LSU Tigers as he joins us this week for the other booth presented by Marathon. It's going to be Saturday under the lights at Tiger Stadium, and Chris Blair, we look forward to seeing you there. How's everything going for you and LSU this season?
Well, it's nice. I got a very rare 2-bye season, so I could get used to that coming off the second bye of the year, which means I had 2 Saturdays to watch college football, which is a rarity. So 2024 so far so good, and should be highlighted by a big matchup Saturday at Tiger Stadium. It's interesting, we've gone from the BCS to 14 playoff now to a 12-team playoff. And wouldn't you know it, Roger, here we are, week number 9 for LSU. And again, Alabama LSU has implications on the SEC and obviously the college football playoffs, which is why there'll be a ton of eyeballs and ears tuned into what's happening Saturday night.
Certainly looking forward to it. If you could, for a moment, just kind of take us through the journey this team has been on, starting with week 1 against USC.
Well, I mean, I think it's a team that was led by its offense, and that was certainly on display against USC. I mean, defensively, LSU struggled, and you kind of thought maybe, new coordinator, first game, neutral site, decent team. Then the second week, at home against Nichols, gave up a couple of huge runs, completely out of position, did not set the edge, and again, LSU won that game because their offense was overwhelming, but you start to wonder about this defense. So you go a couple of weeks into the year, and it's like the offense is going to have to win these games each and every time out. And up until last time out against Texas A&M, the defense had progressively gotten better, and I think the turning point was against South Alabama, albeit a non-conference game, but the defense looked like they were where they were supposed to be. There weren't as many busted coverages, and they tackled extremely well. And then that kind of carried over for a couple of weeks, including the big win over Ole Miss, where I thought they really, against Ole Miss and Arkansas, I thought defensively they could play with anybody. They took a step back against Texas A&M. Again, the offense did not play well either, but it's still kind of a defense that I don't know, Roger, whether or not we have seen them play their best. Hopefully they haven't, because they're going to need to play much better this coming Saturday. But it's still a team that offensively, I think, can play with most teams. But you never want to be in a situation where you got to outscore, 35-32 or 42-38. So hopefully the defense, I hate to say it, but hopefully it was just an anomaly against Texas A&M. So, but that's really LSU this season. It's not a team that runs the ball very well. In fact, they have struggled running the ball. It's Garrett Nussmeier and a very deep stable of talented receivers. That's the storyline and really the modus operandi of LSU here in 2024.
And speaking of Garrett Nussmeier, when he's playing at his best, what's he doing for this offense?
He's making good decisions, and frankly, he's done that all year except for the battle against Texas A&M. I mean, those 3 interceptions, he would be the first to tell you that he was trying to make a play and probably would have been better off chucking it away or even eating it for that matter. The 3 interceptions were not particularly great plays by the A&M defense, although give them credit, they were where they needed to be, but they were just bad throws. The first one was he was on his back foot, about to go out of bounds. He tossed it a good 20 feet up in the air, and at that point, that's anybody's football. The second one, they were trying to get him sprint out to the right, which he does extremely well. He throws extremely well on the run, but that was the only thing they had. The left side of the offensive line was getting just hammered, so he was not only designing to sprint out to the right, he had to run to the right. And eventually Texas A&M said, you know what, we know where the ball's going, so forget covering the receiver, we're going to where the ball is. That was the second interception. So his decision-making has been much better this season. And again, he's got great targets to throw to. Starts with Kyron Lacey and Aaron Anderson, who Alabama fans know. C.J. Daniels, the transfer, who did not play against Texas A&M due to injury. Hopefully he's going to be back. And then a group of tight ends that are extremely talented, big targets, good hands, and maybe deceiving speed, especially for Mason Taylor and Trey'Dez Green. So, he's played extremely well. That was not his best game in Bryan College Station. And, I'll say this about Texas A&M. There's been a bunch of teams, Roger, this year who basically said, we don't think you can run on us, and we're going to use our front four to get pressure, and we're going to try to drop 7 deep. And South Carolina tried that early. Arkansas tried it early, and then they got out of it. And eventually they had to start bringing 5 and 6 on blitz packages, and that allowed Garrett to just knife them apart. Texas A&M, the first team that was able to basically rush 4 the entire game and send 7 back into coverage. And that really made that one-dimensional offense for LSU really, really struggle. So, that's kind of the secret. Not that I'm giving away secrets, but it's obviously much harder to do than say. But that's kind of been the only thing that has slowed LSU's offense down, is being able to not have to overcommit to rushing the pocket.
Yeah, and just with that in mind, plus running the football, where do things stand right now for LSU on the offensive line?
Well, they're going to be without Garrett Dellinger, who was injured, had a tightrope surgery on his foot, his ankle. They hope he'll be back, maybe, optimistically, on the road against Florida, but he will not be in there this week, which, depletes a pretty veteran and really talented offensive line. It's anchored, obviously, by Emory Jones and Will Campbell. But, while they have done a very good job of keeping Garrett upright, I mean, they've only given up 4 sacks all season. They gave 2 to South Carolina and 2 to Texas A&M. That's pretty impressive, especially when you got a quarterback who's throwing it 40 to 50 to 51 times a game, that they can protect him. The issue has been not really being able to run the football. And, it's kind of a head scratcher when you look at the guys in the running back room. You got Josh Williams, who's had, a ton of success here. The former walk-on has had some big moments in the run game. Caleb Jackson, who had some big moments last year as a true freshman, really hasn't gotten into the groove. And then Caden Durham has been the bright spot, the true freshman who has got world-class track speed. He runs track for LSU. When he gets loose, there's not many people on the planet that can actually catch him. The problem is they can't get beyond the line of scrimmage, and that's been a problem for the offensive line. But Coach Kelly says it goes much deeper than that. It's the inability of receivers and tight ends to block properly. And it also has fallen on the running backs, where they're unable to break first contact. And as well as anybody that's watched the great running backs at Alabama, when their offensive line is good, it's not as if they always give them a giant hole to run through. Sometimes those guys got to break initial contact. So that's kind of where the running game has been. But the offensive line without Dellinger is going to look a little bit different. Paul Mubinga, a young player who they have a lot of hope for and think he's got a big ceiling, but he's going to be thrown into the mix just like he was last week mid-game.
Any other injuries that'll really have an impact on LSU this week?
Well, I mean, Chris Hilton had not played up until last time out. He had been on the shelf since playing in the bowl game on New Year's Day. I don't know how much rust he got off of him against Texas A&M. They went to him a couple of times, targeted him a number of times, just couldn't connect. But he's the real over-the-top guy, and if he's maybe got that rust off, he could be a big factor in the game. C.J. Daniels didn't play. He's been nursing kind of an injury that's plagued him over the last several weeks. And for my money, he and Aaron Anderson are the two go-to guys. Now, Kyron Lacey makes the plays, and he gets the highlights. But when you need 6 to 8 yards and you can't run the football and you're going to have to use the passing game as an extension of your running game, C.J. Daniels is that possession receiver. So Coach Kelly said earlier in the week that he is much better than he was this time heading into the Texas A&M game. So hoping to have all those guys back, because, again, that makes that wide receiver room a big challenge for defensive coordinators in any defense, really, as to who you're going to bracket. Are you going to double coverage? Who are you going to, cover the tight ends, Mason Taylor and Tradez Green and even Kamorius Pimpton? There's so many times this year. Ole Miss got caught a number of times with a 5'10" safety trying to, face guard Mason Taylor and those tight ends. So the more the receivers are healthy, the better they're going to be. And outside of that, other than the guys who are out for the season, which came early in the year, Jacoby and Guillory and obviously Harold Perkins Jr., everybody, all things considered, pretty healthy going into Game 9.
So as we keep looking at this team, how about on the defensive side of the ball? Who are some of the key playmakers there?
It's Whit Weeks. He has emerged as the linebacker for LSU, and he kind of reminds me of a throwback to the old school SEC linebacker. He is a joy to be around. He's a great young man. Somehow LSU snuck in his brother West out of Kirby country and Watkinsville, Georgia, and they're here in Baton Rouge. And Whit, who's the sophomore, the younger of the two brothers, is one defensive player of the week. He leads the team in tackles. He's near the top in SEC when it comes to tackles. He just knows where to be. The thing I've said about Whit Weeks is, I've seen him catch running backs and receivers in the flat, and you think to yourself, is Whit Weeks that fast that he's catching these guys from behind? And the secret is he knows what angle to take. He's got a very good nose of where the football is going and from point A to point B, and he gets there very quick. So he's not as fast as some of those skill players that he's tackled, but he knows the angles to take. So it starts with Whit Weeks. And, and his success, frankly, has been because of the play of the defensive front and especially the defensive edges. Braden Swinson has become a force in the SEC. He's one of the tops in sacks in conference play. Savion Jones has been a stalwart on the other side on the defensive edge. Coach Kevin Peoples, who came in with Coach Baker, the defensive coordinator, has done a really magnificent job. We thought the defensive rush and the defensive edge would be the weak part along with the secondary this year, and that's anything but. And then you got to give some credit to the guys on the interior. Without Jacoby and Guillory, who is your veteran, they've had to put in a couple of young guys. Shone Washington is one. Ahmad Bro is another. And the reason Whit Weeks and Greg Penn, the other linebacker, along with Braden and Savion, has had success, I think, is because of really maybe the underrated role of the interior lineman defensively for LSU. On the back end, it's still a concern. Zy Alexander certainly is the most veteran. He battled some injury midway through the season, but he seems to be 100%. He'll have his hands full, but he's probably the best corner. And then Major Burns, who has gotten better at safety. He's basically now playing the star position, and it looks like he's kind of come into his own. So Major's playing a lot better there as well. So I think the secondary has improved. It's nowhere near where they want it to be, and it's nowhere near DBU that is come to be expected here at LSU. But they are getting better. But I think you take that Texas A&M game away, they destroyed Connor Wigman. I mean, Wigman couldn't do anything. And the talk, Roger, at halftime, we went into the media room and everybody was saying, as long as they keep Wigman throwing on first down, this is going to be a cakewalk for LSU. That didn't happen. Credit to Coach Elko. They made the switch and changed up the dynamic a little bit with Marcel Reed. And what was hard to fathom was that LSU has faced a number of running quarterbacks at South Carolina. They faced Jackson Dart. They held him in check. It wasn't new. But it appeared they had a hard time adjusting the game plan, which was to get after Wigman and then try to handle the zone read that Marcel Reed was going to be throwing at them or running at them. And they ran right by him a good 5 or 6 times, especially there in the third quarter when Texas A&M started to get their foothold. LSU got pressure. They just went right by him. He pulled the ball, and he was off and running. So, again, they've played much better. They did not look good in Bryan College Station, but they are going to have to play their best game of the season against an Alabama team that, look, both of these teams know you lose Saturday night, all the major goals are off the table. I mean, and for all intents and purposes, this is a playoff game for both LSU and Alabama. That would give Alabama their third loss. It would give LSU their third loss or second loss in SEC play, third loss of the year. They're pretty much on the outside looking in. So, as I said to start this, the implications are big for the conference, big for the playoff, and big for both Alabama and LSU, which means Saturday night, no surprise, it's going to be a huge game once again.
We can't wait to get down there for it and eventually see the Tigers in basketball as well. Basketball kind of on our brains with opening week. What's the excitement level for Coach McMahon and his program getting ready for this year?
Well, without question, Roger, this is the most talented roster Matt McMahon has fielded. He's done a very good job of containing and managing his own roster, keeping a nice core from not only last year, but the year before that, which, as you well know, is kind of unheard of these days in college basketball and college sports. So he had a good core to build around with Jalen Reed, Derek Fountain, Mike Williams, who came on strong as a true freshman last year, and Tyrell Ward. And then he went out and got really a stellar group of backcourt players out of the transfer portal with just a number of guys that I think 3 of the transfer guys have 7,000 minutes of college basketball under their belt. And so, they don't really have a dominant inside player, although Damian Collins, the transfer from Kentucky, is 100% healthy. And I think certainly has the ability to play above the rim. He can help you there. but no real back to the basket. So this is going to be a lot like what you see when you sit courtside, which is I don't know if they'll give Alabama a run for their money on shooting as quick as they do, but it's going to look a lot more like that. And if you look at Matt's success at his previous stop at Murray, that was the type of offense he liked to run. He just did not have the horses to do it in his first 2 years. He feels like he does this year. Again, they'll tip off Wednesday night. We'll find out if they do. But I think the optimism is much higher going into this season than it has the previous two, just based on the roster that he's putting on the floor.
Best of luck with basketball coming up. We'll save baseball for down the road, but football, of course, coming up on Saturday between Alabama and LSU. Chris, thank you for your time. Can't wait to get to Baton Rouge for the ball game. Thank you, and we'll see you Saturday.
You got it, Roger. Thanks for having me and looking forward to it. You guys travel safe, and we'll see you Saturday night in Death Valley.
Don't miss out on your chance to experience the energy and the excitement of the Great American Race. Witness history in the making and purchase your tickets today for the 2025 Daytona 500 at DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com. Appreciate the time of Chris Blair as we'll be heading to Baton Rouge coming up on Saturday for Alabama against LSU. But as you'll see in our upcoming schedule, we have a lot going on before that as we take a look at what's coming up on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Well, it really starts later tonight. Crimson Tide women's basketball against Alabama A&M. 7:30 will be the tip-off. Hopefully you can join Richard Hendricks and I for the broadcast of that ball game. And then tomorrow, a new episode of Tide TV This Week, plus the men's basketball game at 7 p.m. between Alabama and Arkansas State. Welcome home, Brian Hodson. Of course, on Saturday, our radio coverage will start at 3:30 across the network, leading up to kickoff at 6:30 under the lights at Tiger Stadium. And hopefully, Chris Stewart and Kalen DeBoer will have a good spot in the end zone to record the Kalen DeBoer TV show following the ball game. Breaking that down, that'll be available to watch on Sunday to our TV affiliates and RolledTide.com. Also on Sunday, the women's basketball team home against Troy. That'll be a 2 p.m. tip-off from inside Coleman Coliseum. And then don't forget the men's game against McNeese State on Monday, as well as Crimson Tide Rewind, making it a very busy Monday. So with all that in mind, make sure you follow the Crimson Tide Sports Network at UA_CTSN. All social media platforms will have a lot of booth cam highlights, courtside cam highlights, interview clips from Crimson Drive, and just much, much more to keep you connected to the Alabama Crimson Tide. It's going to wrap up what's been a busy Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, helping you get ready for the Alabama-LSU football game and, of course, get the season started the right way with Crimson Tide basketball. Thanks to James Smith, Holly Rowe, Chris Blair for joining us. Thanks as well to Ethan Carabin, our video producer, who put all of this together on this Thursday afternoon. Now, as we say goodbye on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, we always like to give the final word of the week to the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Kalen DeBoer, from last night's episode of Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show. From Tuscaloosa, this is Roger Hoover saying thank you for watching and Roll Tide.
Kind of has felt like forever since we've played, even though, it wasn't that long ago, but it just, guys are, I know, chomping at the bit to get back on the football field and continue to, be rewarded with the work that they put in, and that's, they're just being able to stay with the process and just stay with the things that matter and focus on themselves has just been so impressive to me. And, just want that you want it to result in wins. And, I expect us to be well prepared and ready to go on Saturday. And so just everything I've seen, I like where we're at. And, we're not done yet, but I like where we're at right now.
Always good to see you. Always appreciate your time. Thanks for bringing Q. Was it painful? Was this all right?
Yeah, it's all right.
I know you're looking forward to the game a whole lot more than you're looking forward to this, but you did great.
For sure. I appreciate y'all for having me.
And look, you're from Inslee. I'm from Fairfield. I still appreciate you. Still good to see you.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for having me.
Q Robinson with us, along with Coach Kalen DeBoer.